All right, we're live. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to another Evolve Lab Live. For those that don't know, we have Ben Guler, our Chief Technology Officer, and Jim Grieve, one of our BIM managers. How's it going, guys?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing
Good.
great.
For those
Yeah.
that don't know, it's Ben's birthday, so we need to flood the comments with a happy birthday. A big happy birthday to you, Ben. How old are you today?
34. Thank you.
34. All right, look at that. And we were just chatting, Jim, before the call. Like, just you're older than Ben and I, but you have that young face.
Oh, I appreciate that, Bill.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
That's a nice comment. Yeah,
yeah.
I appreciate it. I think I'm the am I the senior member of Evolve Lab
You're the
right now?
senior,
Yeah,
100%
so
for sure. Yeah. Do you
hopefully
do you feel
some
do you feel
sorry.
comfortable sharing your age?
Sure. Yeah, I just turned 40 actually.
Oh,
So
snap!
Good
Look
for
at
you,
that.
man.
yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very
So
cool.
Ben, are you second in line then or Bill?
I'm second. I'm the old
You're
guy.
second. Okay.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
gray gives it away, 38. So yeah, I'm the old
38. So
guy
you're
in the
not, yeah, all right. You're not too far
yeah.
behind me.
Yeah. But you guys both still have your hair too. I got gypped on that as well. So dang it.
Bummer.
Jeans. It's all
Well, I'm
right.
starting to get actually some gray hairs. Actually, I'm
Are you?
saying. Yeah, yeah. My
Oh, look
wife
at
was telling me.
you
It's
maturing.
distinguished, right? It's
Yeah.
distinguished.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shows that intelligence, that wisdom, the wisdom
Right.
in the
Exactly.
gray.
Yeah.
So
That's what
That's
I'm
what I
holding on
feel.
to, being the senior member of the team is I've got that wisdom thing nailed down, right? Like that's my official role on the team is to have that wisdom, but I'm not
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll go with that. Hopefully hopefully I
It's,
can walk that.
I like it. It's very
Yeah.
good. Cool. All right. Well, we're going to jump into this. We got a lot to share. I was talking to Ben before this,
Yeah.
and there's a ton to show. And just to kind of kick us off, we want to hear in the comments as well where you guys are from. A question we have for you guys at your firm is, are you guys using SketchUp for your main design authoring software? Are you guys using something else like Rhino, Revit? We'd like to know some of those questions. And then also where you guys are listening in from. That's always insightful as well. So appreciate that. But let's start with just kind of why. All right. So Helix has been in the making for those that have followed us for a while. Helix is one of those things that we had kind of a V1 going a few years ago, and we made a big push on this V2 this last 6 to 8 months. And we're just getting ready to publish this open beta so you guys can sign up for it, check it out. But Helix really started from, and I'm curious too, Jim, you and Ben's experience on this. I was the guy that was always inheriting the SketchUp models, and then I had to Revitize those things. I had to make it, into this building information model. And so it was one of these things that I saw as like this model drop chasm between the two programs. I had SketchUp on one screen, Revit on the other. And it was one of those things that I just saw as really time consuming. And I was like, gosh, let's just start in Revit if we can. And I lost that battle. Like the SketchUp was just too easy for designers, like very convenient, very fast. And so every firm I've worked at, I've lost that battle. And I said, you know what? We've got to find a better way to do it because there is this chasm that exists between the two programs. And I've been from there. I got obsessed with interoperability. There's of course Rhino Inside is a great tool. So I started playing with that a bit. But what's kind of your guys' experience on the SketchUp to Revit side of things? Did you guys have similar pain points or not as much, if I can ask?
Yeah. So maybe I'll start on some of this, but basically I learned SketchUp first. Actually, that was my first 3D software that I ever learned back in like 2006 or something like that. And before I even I was getting into architecture. That was kind of like the thing that I learned, and it's very intuitive. So I fell in love with it. Like I learned it was either that or learning 3ds Max. And in terms of simplicity, SketchUp is way easier, and it's so easy that I have a friend who actually teaches, third graders how to model, buildings in SketchUp actually because it's that easy, that intuitive. And then learned Rhino, got really proficient with Rhino, loved using Rhino for something, more complex geometries, and then learned Revit as kind of getting to the professional field and using that. And I love all three softwares, but all have different pros and cons. And professionally, I've used a lot of Revit for a lot of the documentation and BIM stuff. But there's still things that I love in SketchUp that is not easily reproduced in Revit in terms of the quality of modeling and the kind of the ease of just quickly sketching. It feels like an extension of yourself. Whereas you kind of have to fight a little bit with Revit to get those things. You can still do it pretty well in Revit too, but there's that quality that people are attracted to, and if you kind of expand that to everyone, it's like there's definitely a preference to, if you would know both, I would think, for quick mock-ups to really use SketchUp for that.
That's great. Thanks, Ben. How about you, Jim?
Yeah, so in my experience, SketchUp was used by the designers who, wanted to quickly flesh out some ideas and, their schematic design, or, if they had some design ideas in there, because of the ease of use and the, it's just, you can quickly come up with, different schemes and design options. And then I don't have much SketchUp experience, so I was always in Revit. And so you're just like you, Bill, said, like you said, I might get a SketchUp model and say, okay, this is what we're going with. Let's start building the Revit model, right? And a lot of times our designers wouldn't have the Revit experience, right? So they would know SketchUp, but they wouldn't know Revit. So they jump into SketchUp, they build their model there, and then they pass it off to us, and we've got to take that time to actually rebuild the model and use it for our design drawings.
That's great. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I full disclosure, I'm kind of a SketchUp noob, and that's why I invited Ben to be on. Like, I can kind of fake it in SketchUp a little bit. I know some of it, but Ben's definitely one of our SketchUp wizards. So because we have so much content, I want to just jump into it, if that's okay, Ben. I'm gonna go ahead and share your screen. So I'm gonna turn that on, and maybe Ben, I'm gonna give you the floor, man. Can you just talk about what you're gonna be doing today and show us some of Helix and what you're working on?
Yeah, so we're going to show some interoperability between SketchUp and Revit using Helix, and I'll just start with some simple examples, and then we'll kind of get more complex and kind of how we can intertwine both and use each software for what they're really good at. So I'll start off with this one. So basically, I just quickly extruded something in SketchUp essentially, and then I've mapped it. I created some layers here. I just call them walls, roofs, floors. And you can even color these by layer or by tag. And then you can kind of see what we got there. And then when you open up the Helix window, so I'll put this up here, as I'm selecting things, I can say, assign to, well, let's start with the walls, assign to walls. And then you can choose, you can see that as soon as I assign that to a wall, and that's kind of drew up in Revit as native walls. So if I turn off shaded view here, you can see that. I could change the wall types too. I could change them to something different here.
Snap.
If I go to the roof, I could choose a different mapping for that. So I could choose roof here. And then let's say slope glazing. Okay, it's probably not what I want, but let's just start with that. I could change it to other things too. So you could choose the mapping from your SketchUp to the Revit elements. And perhaps I skipped a step, but on the Revit side, I had to kind of sync up the family types, and I'll do this throughout this kind of conversation and other examples. But syncing these types basically exports all of these types from Revit in the actively running model to memory, so that they're selectable as a drop-down option when you're on the SketchUp side, essentially.
That's awesome. Yeah. So just real quick, we did have a comment in here, and they said the SketchUp to Revit workflow is hard because of the material. There's no material translation. But Ben, this looks like this solves that problem right now. We're using native Revit assemblies, the system families, the roofs, et cetera right now.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the workflow. If you're looking at like raw mesh geometry from like SketchUp, we'll get to that too, like SketchUp exactly run into Revit, and I want like this light fixture exactly the way it's modeled in SketchUp. I don't want to BIMify it and make it parametric. Then you could still set those materials with our workflow, but those materials don't come in as like Revit materials from SketchUp the native way, basically. And we are looking at expanding that workflow so you could actually automatically even generate those materials. That's kind of a feature that we have in our backlog, to actually generate actual materials with textures in Revit from SketchUp.
Gotcha. Thanks, Ben.
For this one, but for the BIM side, this is kind of like SketchUp BIM in a way, or Helix BIM, where it translates kind of these face-based elements into BIM elements, native, so walls, roofs, ceilings, floors, things like that. Yeah, so I've mapped these elements here, so I'm just going to push-pull on some of this, just kind of showcase kind of how that updates as you're kind of changing that model in SketchUp.
This is so freaking cool.
It's amazing.
I get so excited watching it.
Yeah, this is fun. So I could do this, do some of this stuff.
Oh, snap. Look at that.
That's crazy. Wow.
Shout out to Chris. He just implemented sloped roofs. So this is now possible,
yeah,
right?
That's right.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Let's do some more. Let's rotate this. This is going to come out weird, so I'm going to fix this out before I sync it up. Maybe that's what's plainer here. There you go. So that's a bit, yeah. Okay. So
Wow.
I'll keep it to this geometry here. I've also modeled some very simplistic, like just a rectangle, make a component, window 3, let's say, and it's just a component that cuts through this in SketchUp. Just to demonstrate how windows and doors work, since those are hosted in Revit, and how we map those. So basically, if I click on these elements, and this one doesn't show up, so I have to hit refresh here. But if I click on this, I can see that I could map by component, not just by, before I just map by layer, basically, and I'm coloring by layer, so I could also turn that off if we want to. But if I select this component, I could say, okay, window 1, I could assign it a window, and I could choose the type that I want from here. And again, this list is populated from the model. So if I hit sync on that, you can see how those windows kind of came in here. And again, if I choose different types, I can see how that modifies my model here.
That's incredible.
That's amazing.
And the way this
so Ben,
works,
as you're sorry to interrupt you, as you're changing the window type, and it's immediately changing it in Revit, right? So you don't have to sync SketchUp.
Sorry, I think I'm losing audio there. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we hear.
Yep,
I hear Jim, and I do hear you, Ben. Can you hear us all right?
I think you might have connected to my other wireless setup here. Give me a second here, guys. Sorry.
Okay. Ben got some new fancy headphones, and they automatically sync up here. So I think that's what was happening.
I think I lost my audio here.
Uh-oh. Technical difficulties. Hang tight. Well, Ben's connecting. I'm going to answer some of the questions that are in the comments here. So some of the questions are asking, is this supposed to maintain in both models? So if you have a design model in SketchUp and you have your Revit model in your publishing CDs, what happens with the translation between the two of these? And the answer is actually it maintains. So it's using a technology. If we edit one wall, it will delete that wall and redraw it. And it'll do the same thing with the windows as we're seeing. But if you don't touch any of the adjacent walls, okay, cool. If you don't touch any of the adjacent walls, I was buying you some time there, boss. All right. So if you don't touch any of the adjacent walls on the SketchUp side, those are maintained. So that's been the team. Some questions in the group was like, okay, what happens? I'm seeing this live sync. Is it deleting stuff? Is it redrawing? And I was just kind of communicating that it maintains the stuff that you did not touch, but it does delete and redraw the stuff that you do touch. So and that was a question we got from one of our friends, Jason, in the industry yesterday. And I don't know if you have a way to demo that, Ben, if you have a dimension or something, or if there's a way you can show that those dimensions are maintained if you don't touch them. But then if you do touch other areas, then it of course updates. So.
Right. So let's say if I just modify this one, like that, may sync it up. It didn't touch this one. Yeah, I can actually also add some dimensions. I think I could do it in this. I might have to lock this view first. No, I could do it here. So yeah, if I modify this object here, sync to SketchUp, that's not touched. But if I move this around, it actually, the current modification doesn't modify it per se. It deletes and recreates it actually, if it was modified on the SketchUp side.
That's right. Good answer. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah.
And someone was also, what point is the window hosted? Is it centered with the block, or those aren't the same size cutouts? Like, how is the window hosted, Ben?
Right. It's using this insertion point of the component in SketchUp. Okay. So if I look at this family here, that's going to match up exactly, depending on where your insertion point is in Revit for that family. It will be based on that.
Right. And the cutout size is dictated by the family type, basically, in the family type settings.
That's right. Yeah. So just so you guys know, we made an intentional effort on this side of it because we know every firm has their own window libraries, and you guys are going to need to schedule that information. So whether it's a window or a door, the idea was to use your firm's native window and door library, and then leveraging the shared parameters that already exist in those libraries for scheduling purposes. And so that was the reason we took this approach for this mapping workflow to use your firm's family and types. So just to clarify, that was super intentional.
It would be really cool to hear we have some ideas in the backlog, looking at actually either detecting the height and width of windows from SketchUp and linking those to instance parameters.
Oh yeah.
So that if you set them as instance, it just kind of follows whatever you've got in SketchUp. So you don't have to kind of do extra mapping. You can just map it simply. And then the other alternate would be creating new types, basically, and then a type naming criteria. Like, we'll just make a new type with these data, with this X and this Y for the width and the height. And then the problem with that is that you might get too many types, and we have to kind of do like a rounding to the nearest inch so that we don't have like all these minor like types if you happen to have your SketchUp model set that way. So.
Yeah, good comment. I like it. Yeah, because it's to that point, people are kind of quick in SketchUp, right? So trying to have like some clean dimensions for your model. So I like it.
If they're components, though, they're going to be consistent. So you could say that this is a type because, it's going to be a type.
Right.
So I'm curious, Ben, you said the sloped roof is a brand new feature, right? We just kind of knocked that out recently.
Yeah. It's pretty simple right now. It just, if I go to the roof, looks like I think I clicked the wall. It sets the boundary, obviously, of it. And then the slope here, which is detected from the SketchUp side. So this is 19.78 degrees here. Looks like.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was curious about.
Here that you can see, like, this should kind of attach to the roof so that the geometry is a bit cleaner, but that's kind of an easy fix here.
That's so cool.
Cool. This is great. Someone's asking about organic geometry. Okay, this is nice planar surface. You have a sloped roof. Looks like a pretty simple geometry. How do we start handling more kind of complex modeling, Ben?
Yeah, we'll get to some more rectilinear things. There's kind of two ways. The current supported way is you're getting something like non-surface based because it's all faceted. So SketchUp, everything's a triangle. There's no like B-rep representation like Rhino would have or Revit would have of a continuous surface that's smooth to the nth degree, essentially. So you would do something like the DXF methods or the direct shape methods that we have as features. And then those are not BIMified though, because those are like one-to-one representations. And it's to the user how fine they want to make that mesh, which will define its kind of a triangular density for how smooth that kind of translates into the Revit side. But if you wanted to use those as basis of walls, like if I want to model by face with walls, that's not something that we currently support if you wanted that, basically. But we have talked about how we could actually start to support that in the future, perhaps.
That's good. Good answer. And then another question is, what about curtain wall? Do we support curtain wall? Yeah. Can we, instead of having these place windows, could it actually place a curtain wall?
Yeah, I think, yeah, so I was going to go to doors too, but let's skip to that. So I think I could just do a quick demo here. So I'll just paint, I'll paint it by color. So I'll just use this color here. I'll probably make it a little bit transparent so it looks a bit like that. And then, so I made it a group, actually. I can make it even a component. And then let's say call it.
Dude, you're so much better at SketchUp than I am. This is awesome. Okay, SketchUp Ninja over here.
It looks really easy when Ben's doing it.
Oh yeah, just click this thing. He was showing me how to all the shortcuts last night. He was showing me too. So,
so I'll choose curtain wall. I'll do that, and I'll sync that up. So you can see now this is a curtain wall. Now again, I probably should use a different curtain wall here. Let's see. I think I'm also getting my previous one in there because I might have. Oh, that's right, because I have it by layer, so it's actually double counting it. So I'm just gonna. We do have a feature for taking that out. So I'll take this off of that layer for a second here. So tag, there you go. And I'll sync it up again. So you should only see that curtain wall. And again, if I change that curtain wall to something else, you could see, whatever the Revit type is, it will start to kind of use that. Looks like these types that are loaded in this construction model doesn't have any mullions, but this has kind of like the type-based things that are here.
So freaking cool.
Move this around. I just stretch that curtain wall. It's actually below that for some reason.
And it's all native curtain wall. You have your grids and everything in there. It's a native Revit curtain wall, so no mass to mass kind of translation. We're using native Revit systems here.
Right. You can edit the sketch right now. So.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, so
that's
that
cool.
Edit the profile. Yep.
Edit the profile of the wall.
Right.
Man.
There you go. We got a building. I'll probably map this door, and then we'll kind of wrap up this example and go to the next one.
That'd be great.
Doors. We'll just choose something. sync it up, and then there you go. You have a door.
Yeah. You guys will want to hang out for the whole live stream too. Just so you know, we have a few different demos on this, a few examples. So some pretty cool stuff. This is like a pretty simple model. We have a more advanced model, and then we have some interior design kind of workflow. So if you guys can hang out for the whole thing, it's going to be cool.
Cool. Anything else before we move forward, or any other questions on this one, Phil? Okay. Cool. So
one question someone's asking: what categories can we map? What categories do we support, Ben?
Sure. So for this BIM effort, we have curtain walls. I'll skip these for later. Doors, floors. We also have pipes, actually. Well, we won't go to that today. So like MEP pipes. Roofs, topography, walls and windows. That's what we're currently support. Cool. And then for component-based, I want to see if there's anything that's different there. No, it's essentially it's the same list, essentially, yeah. Okay, cool. I think I'll move to another example here. So I'll open this up real quick. Okay. Bear with me for a second here. Okay, so this is a model that we've used in the past, essentially, to kind of demonstrate some of this functionality. And what I did is we've already synced it before this call, so I moved it to the side. But I want to start mapping just to kind of show how other ways of working with this and how you can kind of build it to this level extent, essentially, by starting from scratch, so to speak. So if again, I want to make sure that the drop down, so I'll close this out because that part does get refreshed when I open the UI. So if I export or sync up the family types, I will get the types loaded in this model. So I can see here, there's a bunch of types that got loaded up. And then on the SketchUp side, if I open my Helix UI here, those drop downs are now available. So I can start mapping here, essentially. So if I click on, and I'll actually start mapping by material. So you could map by material or layer before I was using layer. I'll choose something like, okay, so I'll use walls for this one. And then I don't know exactly what this one, actually do know what it is, but I could click on this one to see, for example, on it says stucco. So there's probably a lot of walls in here. If I scroll through this list that I don't want to look through, so I'll just start typing away. So stucco, okay, there you go. So that's just one there. So at this point, if I zoom out, I can sync here, and then I can see how, well, I should turn on my live mode here. So I could manually also just hit load and it will load that, but I could also click on live sync mode, and that will also bring in, like, as soon as I hit sync on the SketchUp side, it will sync up. So I got that in there, and I can just keep going here. So I have siding. So let's see. So I'll walls, choose horizontal, sync that, and then that's going to start to populate that. And then perhaps I'll add this other wall here. So this is a wall actually in this component. And I don't know what was used on the Revit side, so I'll just click on it to see what it is. It's the CMU stone. So I'll search for that. CMU.
This is so cool. I was looking for this search function. I was telling Mark actually last night, I'm like, man, I just really want this search function. So he's like, dude, you just type it in. I was like, really? Yeah, you should be. Yeah. I didn't even know we had the search function until last night. This is great.
Yeah. So you do that. I guess, I should add these as to complete that. Let's add these roofs. These are 2x4. So I'll select this face here. That's the material, that one. So I'll select roofs. And then, let's see, 2x4. There you go. So I'll sync that up too. And I should start seeing those start to populate there. Oh, there they are. Cool. I guess I could add some more roofs here. I think this one's a cool one. I'll probably do this one by layer just to switch things up. So I'll go make a new tag here, call it roof 3. And then I want to see what type is used in Revit for that. Asphalt shingle. So I'll go with that. So I'll refresh the board. So I could select this. I could select, I should put this in the layer first. So roof 3. So now I could see that that's selected there. Okay. And then there it is. Sync that up too.
So there's two ways to map. One is by what material and one by layer? And why would you use one approach versus the other?
Yeah, so I think for materials, it's really quick because a lot of pre-existing things are already there in your model, and it's very visual. So a lot of people work visually, and they see that material visually that's correctly placed. So you kind of using that knowledge there. Uh, Whereas maybe layers are not as maintained. But moving forward, I think layers will be a lot more stable way to work through things because, um, you know, with Helix, we're going to be opinionated on a prescriptive way to model in SketchUp, such that those elements are translatable to Revit. You can't model things any way you want to, for example. Like, well, we'll get into that later. But with layers, you don't have to, you could have different materials or anything you want to, and just still map it to the same BIM element. Whereas with materials, like what you see is what you get. So it just opens up different workflows basically. And um, as we extend the functionality of Helix, layers will allow you to get more out of kind of syncing things up, and you could make it more systematic. Where as long as you put in the right layer, things will translate, and not have to worry about like finishes. Like I just changed the color of this for a little bit, I have to kind of remap that.
Dude, you know the thing I'm
Another
so
cool thing
excited.
about
Sorry, can I interject just real
oh
quick?
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
the thing I really like about that workflow, Ben, is that you don't have to map every roof or every wall or every door, right? You can just map that object
right,
and that permeates to all the other components, right? And then that translates over to Revit. Is that correct?
right. So you, if you wanted to, you could make a layer for like all your like door type A, right?
Mm.
And then any component that you put in there will be door type A when you bring them into Revit. Or you could make a bunch of layers, and now with tags, you could actually nest them. So you could group them in SketchUp. So you could have like as many as you want to. So you could have a group for all your doors, and you could have a layer for every single door type that you would have on the Revit side, and just put your components on the right layer, and don't have to click on that component, to make sure that it syncs up that way. So
That's
that's
awesome.
kind of a workflow for that. The other thing is if you're kind of free modeling right now. So if I'm in this layer here, so this roof right here is mapped by layer. If I am in that layer, so I'm going to make it my active one. So I'll just click this to be my active one, and I keep on sketching away. Like I could essentially just, I don't have to worry about this geometry. It's just going to be part of that layer now, and it's going to come through. And ideally, what you want to do is actually want to group those, put those in that layer, and then make the internal geometry layer 0. Usually, I prefer to do that in SketchUp. That way, things are and actually we'd have to kind of support that too. But yeah, let me do that. Cool. So I think we could go through this model and add a lot of different components, but essentially you would get to kind of something at this level of resolution where you're kind of mapping all your things by either material or by layer, and you kind of have to maintain that in your model, make sure that those are mapped appropriately or modeled appropriately too. And you can use a few different tools in SketchUp too to see reverse faces versus non-reverse faces, things like that, to help out for certain things. And yeah, I don't know if there's any questions about this model, but I think we might want to move to the next one actually.
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
Okay, cool. So
there are some questions about bi-directionality, but I think we're going to tackle that in this next example, right? Maybe that's a good segue.
Yep.
There's a question on there about levels as well. Is that something we can answer now, or is that?
Oh, I missed it. Thank you, Jim.
You bet.
Oh,
so
yeah,
do we have
sure, yeah.
do levels have to be determined in Revit first, or is there support for a SketchUp to Revit workflow?
Yeah, good point. So in the Helix UI, we actually have a ability to add a level. So that's kind of a level here that you could add, and you can copy that over. And that level and I think my levels are probably hidden at this point in this model. Yeah, we have levels in here in Revit. But if you sync it, and I could hit, let's go to sync here, it will add those levels up basically. So you'll see how I just added some more level. Oh, and I was actually, it added a level and a roof because I'm in the roof default layer. So I have to be in this, I'll take these out of that. I have to take these out so that they're not roof tag. But yeah, you can see that these layers just got added here basically. So if I sync this up again, those roofs should disappear. I think these might be on the roof also. So let me untag those. Yeah. There you go. So yeah, those 3 new levels that I just made are there.
Nice.
So you could create them in SketchUp and sync them up. And then we actually are working on the current sprint, actually working on a feature that brings in all the levels from Revit into your SketchUp environment. So you can actually see all the level levels in SketchUp.
That's great. So
about levels. Yeah,
I was going to say, so if a company has their company Revit template and they have levels that are their standard levels that they start every project with, they could bring those into SketchUp first, right, and then start creating their SketchUp model and then push them back into Revit afterwards. That's awesome.
Yeah. And the other thing to know about levels, and we are kind of found some issues actually this morning, so I'm not going to demo that. But the way the levels are used is like for windows or doors or walls, it tries to find the closest level to host that to that level basically. So you want to have those levels there as you're syncing them, because that's how you kind of have your model BIMified, so that not everything is hosted to like level 0 or the bottom level or something like that.
Right. Cool.
Okay, cool. So I think I'll just showcase just to kind of on this trend. I'll just show one more model, and then we'll kind of pivot to kind of bidirectional working. So I just have not this one. This one. This is just an example of another SketchUp model that we kind of started to, and I'll make some notes of this one to kind of map up and bring into Revit, as BIM objects. And we use kind of a plethora of different tools that we'll get to next, basically. But things like, like this family, I didn't have a family for it. I just brought it in straight from, as a component, but not, keep the tessellated edges. So also some of these families I didn't have, so I didn't spend the time to map them. So I just brought them in as like direct shapes, like straight one-to-one. Same thing with like some of these beams. I just kind of brought them in quickly without BIMifying them, which is just kind of showcasing that, there's fallbacks that of things that are not currently supported, that you could kind of have like a low-level, non-perhaps BIM way to still bring them in a way that still doesn't contaminate your drawings and looks clean and still kind of usable. So that's kind of
those come in as a symbol. It says import symbol.
Yeah, so that's kind of the XF workflow. Yeah, so
nice.
Kind of light fixtures, things like that are just kind of coming in that way. Yeah. So yeah, it includes all that kind of raw geometry from SketchUp for that.
That's awesome. So like if a firm didn't have that as a Revit family to map to, they can bring it over as what's the format of DXF?
Yeah, we're using DXF for this one. And what's really nice about that is it doesn't add those additional like edges, the triangulated edges. And what's really cool about it too is, it keeps it one-to-one, basically from one-to-one. And you could, because it doesn't have those edges, it doesn't slow down Revit. Because the other way to work with it, and if you use the Revit importer to bring in this kind of geometry, it actually, the additional edges is what really slows down the model. I think I've instanced like 1,000 or 2,000, like many polygons for objects that were brought in this way.
And yeah, you may or may not have done that with a 3D lion, I believe is what you modeled. Is that right, Ben? You were modeling a lion to test this functionality?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's like a little tiger.
Oh, tiger. Okay. Was it a liger or just a tiger?
A liger.
It was a liger.
Yeah, that was fun. Okay, cool. So I think I'll go to the next workflow here, where I'll just actually start a new SketchUp model afresh. So close this up. Make sure I'm not live syncing with the other.
Oh, sorry, real quick, Ben. Yeah. Matt's asking, are those coming in as in-place families? What's the format of that, like that meter object in there? Is that an in-place family? What is that thing?
No, we don't use any import. And actually, the API restricts usage of those. If we wanted to do that, we would wrap it into a family, actually. We want them to be instanced. They're import symbols.
Okay.
So if I click on it, yeah, so this is like the element ID of it, or not the element ID, but the ID that we give it. And if you go to VG, basically, and you go to, I think it's actually, yeah, these are the elements. Again, this model has a bunch of these because I kind of overused that feature. But that's what they are. They're these IDs, and you could manipulate their materials.
Oh, so you can still control the visibility graphics of it for how you want to show up in your model.
Yeah, we are looking at actually making a wrapper around this so that it doesn't, you don't have to deal with this UI to do it like in a more intuitive way. So you could actually still access this information in a much more intuitive way.
Cool. Sweet. Sounds good. And sorry, real quick before you go to the other example, sorry, I'm trying to get to also the question. There's someone who was asking about grids. Do we support grids yet? We support levels. Is there any kind of reason that we would need or implement grids?
Yeah, not yet. We don't have grids yet. Okay. I think once we add and this could be something that, depending on what people think and how important it is, as soon as we start to get into like structural things like beams and stuff like that, it's very important to get those in columns. We want to kind of start to support those into, and then what you can do like really cool workflows where like, like, anyways, yeah. So that's when we would kind of start to kind of tackle those, because that's important to have those in there.
Sweet, thanks. Did you have a question, Jim? That I interrupted you, maybe?
No, that's okay. I think I was just commenting on, visibility graphics. And so basically anything you don't map, right? Any geometry in SketchUp that you don't map will come in as these import symbols. Is that right? Or did I hear that wrong?
If you opt in to do it.
Okay.
So I'll go through that in this next one.
Okay, cool.
So you have to kind of say, I want this to come in. I don't want it to come in as a family, like a window, or just, I don't have any equivalent family in Revit for it. Just bring in this mesh geometry because I need it to look just like this. It's like custom casework, or custom, like something that you've modeled in SketchUp that needs to be one-to-one to Revit and not look, faceted. Look pretty decent. You would
right. Okay, gotja. Thanks.
Yeah. And sorry, one more thing I had about this one for the imports. Right now we see all these here, but we do have in our backlog a way to wrap these so that these import symbols don't happen to the project. They happen just in the localized family, and that family gets loaded in here. And then that way you don't have to kind of contaminate and contend with, something like this. So FYI.
Could you, so we had a question about families.
Yeah.
Is there a way to bring those elements into a family instead of the main model? And that's basically what we just answered, right? So basically you could bring, okay, cool.
Yeah. So you could go into, you can make a new family document and like sync it up with the SketchUp and hit import, and it will write it into the family, that import symbol. And you can load that family into, so that's our current workaround to do that. If you had like some, furniture pieces, like soft cushions or something that you want to have as a family, they're going to instance all over the project, you would do that. And then so that it doesn't, kind of explode your model with unique instances of all these things.
Okay. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. But we just want to automate that. I mean, and obviously depending on, how people start to use this and how important that would be for them to use this kind of workflow. So
yeah. So if you had some geometry in SketchUp that was, potentially you wanted it to be mechanical equipment family, right? You could bring that in, create a new family out of it, and then in Family Editor you could add connectors and whatever you wanted to, and then bring it into your model after that.
And you could add like Revit-based things in there, like where the connectors are, and just the pure mesh you could have in there that looks clean, basically, inside of that family. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Family editor.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Cool. And I think we could expand on that a bit more with this next example. So I'll just create a new I'll start a new model here. So I just have a residential model here that is actually my house that I modeled. So did some kitchen remodeling here. And
are you in this house currently, Ben?
I am in this house.
Okay.
I am on the upper level, right? Let's see, where am I?
Right. I think we're paying Ben too much.
Yeah.
Right there somewhere.
Where's the Liger? Is the Liger down in the basement?
Yeah. You have a golden water fountain in here somewhere?
Man.
Yeah. This is pretty sweet. It's a nice house.
I'm gonna just crop this up a bit here. And let's see, I might have deleted that object. Okay, perfect. So this is what I wanted to get to. So this is kind of like the addition side of the house. And when I did this, I didn't have Helix. So I actually did buy this IKEA furniture, and I brought it in from SketchUp because the SketchUp warehouse had it, and they had the right size of it. And I just wanted to see it in VR, and I didn't want to model it as a family. I didn't have time. Like, I just want to see it. But it comes in with all these like extra edges. So if you like look at hidden line mode, it's like, it's not what I wanted. I wouldn't use this for like an actual production. Like when I was a BIM manager, this would be a big no. Like, you're not going to just keep this in your model. Like, no, we're going to model it right and spend, a few hours to actually build this family right. But, it's for me, and I I wanted to just see it. I'm just, see in a VR with Enscape. And so I just kind of imported like the native, go to import SketchUp and did it that way. But we actually realized we needed a bigger table here. So we actually sold it, and we bought a new one. So I will show in this example kind of how to bring in this Revit model, because this actually I modeled after Point Cloud, which kind of helped me expedite the modeling process. And that's a really good workflow to use, Revit for that kind of stuff, obviously. And with phasing and everything, because I could kind of do all that. And basically, I'll just export this whole model into SketchUp, and I'll start that. So I'll stick the types first, just in case. and then I'll export the model. So I get this little export complete. And then on the SketchUp side, if I pull this up here, okay, here we are. I just import Revit model. So I'll hit import here, and I can start seeing how it's only getting things that are visible on the screen. And obviously some things are crossing some elements that expand beyond the screen. So that's why we see a bit more. But you can see it's kind of starting to add this part of the house to SketchUp from Revit.
Dude, this is crazy.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just brought it over from Revit. Over, look, your fireplace is there and everything.
Man.
Yeah. It's a fireplace. And
you got colors.
yeah, I got some colors in there.
Okay.
It's a beautiful house.
It is.
Even the carpet. Look at that.
Look at that. Is that carpet from IKEA? Where'd you get the carpet at?
It is actually from IKEA. I got all this stuff from IKEA.
Oh man.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah. You get lost in that store, by the way.
25-minute drive from here, but it's worth it.
Oh yeah.
You gotta get a van though, because I've been borrowing one.
Oh yeah.
Anyways,
that's
so
funny.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of let's see. I'll hide the roof for now, so you can see this stuff. Maybe actually I'll no, it's fine. I'll just hide some of this stuff in here. And now that I have this in here, I could like go to the warehouse and bring in whatever component I want and load it up in here. So I'm just gonna open this up real quick. This is the one that I actually did buy, so I can search that. Actually, it's already there. So it's this table. So I have this one. I could download it. Yes, I could load it up, and there it is. It's pretty close to what it is. Bigger. And then I'll probably just remove the second one because I don't need it. And if I wanted this geometry, and again, this one's pretty rectilinear, so it might not really be problematic to get something like this. But I also want to add some chairs too to this to kind of show both the DXF workflow and the direct shape workflow. So let's see. Let's go back to the warehouse, and let's add some more things here. Say chair. Something interesting. So let's try this one, just because I want to showcase some things. Okay, so there's a few more things that I want here. I just want this and not that. I'll load this in here. Probably do want to drop this, so I just have a script that drops this to the elevation. So if I just press D, it drops it, and I will make two of these actually. I'll make this one. Oh, they're not components, so I'll make this one component. So chair 1, and then this will be chair 2. Do it this way. And now I can map these essentially in Helix, so I can bring them into Revit. So I will pull up my UI here for Helix. It's going to load up for a second here. And then if I click on this one, I can map my components. So chair 1, I'll say I want it to be a DXF. And then chair 2, I wanted to make it into a direct shape actually. So we can demonstrate that. And this table, I'll probably leave it as a direct shape for now. One thing to note right now, and this is something we have in our backlog, you do have to explode all the geometry, which is not ideal, but that's what we kind of have to do right now for it to kind of translate properly. So I'm kind of going into these models and just exploding them until I can't anymore. There you go. I'll do the same for these ones too. Probably should have done it before I made them into components. This one might be a bit slower because it's got a lot of polygons in there. So yeah, once we do that, I'll do the same thing for this one as well. Once we do that, now the mapping is going to kind of map properly and translate. If you don't do this, just nothing might come through and might seem like there's some kind of error that just it's not working. But yeah, you just have to do this step. And okay, so now I've mapped these up, and if I synchronize them up, it's going to start to bring them in here in the right spot. So it's going to take a second because of these kind of two heavier meshes. So it's thinking there. Oh, and I actually didn't enable my live sync, so that's also why they might not be coming right away. Okay, so it's thinking, and there you go. So one came through, and then there's the chair. There you go. So this is a good example to showcase for the chairs, for example, the DXF exporter, when you have something that's a bit more organic. And this is the same thing. This is the same behavior that we'll get if you actually use the native SketchUp importer into Revit, where they will come in tessellated. Whereas if you use the DXF, our DXF importer, those edges are smoothened out. So if you go into hidden line mode, when you are cutting sections or something like that, these are also faster to render to the screen, so it doesn't slow down the model, and they could actually be used in like a PDF, like an actual drawing. So if I actually do this, let's see how this works. So I'll make a section box here. You could even see that it actually cuts it and it fills it in for you when you use that, which is kind of cool actually, that it kind of fills that in. It wouldn't fill it in if there's like a hole in the mesh, so just you'll have different kind of experimentation with how, like if I find a cut point, there you go. So right now these are kind of overlapping, so it doesn't actually fill in that hole, but as soon as I don't have that condition, it actually does cleanly kind of resolve that, which is kind of cool. So yeah, this is kind of the way to bring in, warehouse components into Revit, and not, if you didn't have an exact family for that, and they're represented in a way that are essentially one-to-one geometrically from SketchUp. Now they're not they're not parametric, but they are you can still edit them back in SketchUp. So if I wanted to go back here, let's see if I use the script a lot. Let's see how it works for this one. So I'll stretch it in like one dimensional. I'll just make it shorter a little bit that way. And again, there's some mess there because I could have used a different kind of setup for that. So let me actually fix this. So if I stretch this and I change my reference plane of stretching to somewhere else, not the middle there, something like that. And again, that's still not ideal because I want to move that to be central, but you can kind of get the idea. If I sync this up again, that's going to make that table shorter.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
Okay, that's a pretty practical example. I like where you're going with your practicality with your IKEA furniture, but this is another example. This is your lion that you modeled, right? Your tiger.
Yeah, I've done a bunch of tests with them. I think a lot of these are like even with Dynamo, with OBJ imports. This is kind of like the beginnings of when we're testing this out, so that we don't have meshes coming in, and figured out that there's actually pros and cons for both of them. The XF is also very useful, but then you lose kind of the ability to set the materials in a very intuitive way, which we have a solution for by creating our own material for that editor. But then you gain, the hidden edges. Whereas the other one is, you have those kind of native ways to work with the material if you use the DXF workflow, but then you have those kind of weird edges for things that are like more organic in nature. Like this table is DXF. I mean, it's great because it's all linear, so it's not a problem. But yeah, as soon as you get a bit more complex, it's going to come out and not be usable in drawing.
Yeah. And I think another example, like a practical, is people that do like theme park design, right? Like any kind of really organic kind of design, which we've worked with DTJ quite a bit on, doing kind of theme park projects where you have these really non-planar kind of objects, and it can get really slow. Like I remember we had this workflow from SketchUp to 3ds Max. You had to clean it up. There's a whole process with this, and you're saying depending on how you map this, it comes across as really nice clean edges, right?
Exactly,
dude.
It's a huge time saver.
Yeah.
Like if you have like a sculpture, like I need to have this sculpture in my drawing, it's gonna happen. People would just go through that manual mode, and they'll spend 34 hours to get it right, or maybe an hour if you've done it a few times per object.
Yep.
You go through 3ds Max, you go through AutoCAD, you go through, whatever, all those things. This is just a setting. Just do it. And you could do it for all of the elements in your whole building.
That's
awesome. And this is the fallback method I was kind of demonstrating earlier for the other project, where like if certain things are not like ready yet, you could kind of fall back on, that system where you could just map it as that. And then, you can use that as a placeholder until you actually have time to model that family and do it, the right way perhaps, or the parametric way, if it needs to even be parametric. Some things, for example, you just don't like this chair here. This shouldn't really need to be parametric. It's just that's what the manufacturer, that's what the provider has, and that's going to be it. I'm not going to change that up much. Besides like materiality, which we're also working on top of editing that and allowing you to easily modify that.
Yeah,
good comment, Ben. Marcus,
I can tell you.
Oh, sorry.
I was just say I can't tell you how many projects I've been on in the past where we might have a piece of equipment, like mechanical equipment or process piping equipment or something, a pump, that we couldn't find a Revit family for, but we can find some other, format I could see that being totally useful here, and just bringing it in, adding connectors, creating families, just a quick representation of what that object looks like in the space. I think that's great.
Right.
Yeah. And another question came in too, Ben, was from Marcus, is if you could explain if these chairs are schedulable. Can you schedule these chairs over on the Revit side or not?
Yeah, so these are, if you wrap them into a family, so if you use that workflow and you create a new Revit document and you import this into that, and I could actually demonstrate that right now, then they are. I'm not sure if import symbols are. I'd have to check. I don't know if you know, Bill, but these are import symbols, the same way you would import a CAD file, essentially. That's the type of symbol it is. Or if you import like an object file, or if you import a Rhino file, if you import that, whatever that thing is, if you could schedule that, then you could. So I don't think I've played with it, but I wouldn't actually do it that way anyways. I think this is a stepping stone in the feature where we're going to wrap into a family, and that family, you kind of do whatever you want with that family at that point. You can make a type instance, all those sorts of things that would allow you to schedule it, all sorts of things like that.
Cool. Good comment, Ben.
Yeah. I think I've seen some other comments, just maybe we haven't gotten to them.
Yeah, I was just starting to read. I was going to let you keep going. Kevin was saying a big problem that we have in Revit is how the model gets bogged down when bringing Revit models from other sources like windows, doors, elevators, etc. We usually need to clean them up before bringing them in. How would Helix deal with that, or how would you deal with some of those kind of objects? I think it's kind of similar to the meter, right?
Right.
Example.
Right. So our DXF importer kind of hides all those edges, and the edges are the actual culprit that actually slows down your Revit model. So we've run tests where we like tessellated, like if I were to, and we could do this even here, if I were to tessellate this like 1,000 times versus this one, there's a significant difference in performance. I might, let's see, I'm just going to copy them to clipboard actually, both of these, and then I can make a new project. That will be simple to do that way. So let's do that. And then if I paste these here, let me do it. There you go. So I will just do this array. I think I have to, oh, my window's on the other side. Something is up with my window. I think I lost that window somehow.
Jim, you're the BIM manager. How do we start troubleshooting
I
this?
know, right?
Can I take control, Ben? No.
Oh, there it is. I don't know why it did that. So that was weird. I think it's something it's slipping up. So I'll just I'll just do 5 for now, and then I could change that. So I'll move to the second one. That's cool. Just to make sure it kind of draws it properly and there's no weird stuff going on with it. Okay. And I do want to take off the live sync for a second here, in case anything comes in. Okay, so I have these ones, and it's this is pretty smooth frame per second. So let's make this 1,000. Hopefully nothing breaks. Okay, I guess I can only go to 200. So we could do the 200 one, and then we could rate that one another 200 if we wanted to.
Making me nervous. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're asking for it here. This is we're playing with fire.
Yeah, we'll probably get trash this thing. But you'll see that this maybe at 200 iterations, you could see how the performance, how many frames per second you'll get by orbiting and panning around Revit. And again, from our internal tests, we've done this, and whether this crashes or not. And using the kind of clean geometry is very light. It's smooth. Like it's almost like 10 times faster, if you will, from the kind of the tessellated and faceted visible ones.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we could get some of those cows from Marcelo, bring those in here and run it through the paces. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and the other thing to note too with the DXF importer, you're not capped by the 10,000 line limit. So when you import like a large CAD file that says you can't have more than 10,000 things or something like that, because those edges are hidden, you could have like hundreds of thousands, and we've tested it with like 80,000 polygons or 100,000 polygons. We even tested it with and I could probably pull this up like a point cloud, a mesh point cloud basically, and might actually bring up our forums for this to demonstrate that. So if you guys want to, you could also kind of go to our forums, forum.evolvelab.io, the Helix ones, and we have a few kind of posts here. So we've tested it with, so in this workflow, we have a point cloud, and we use Undet, and made that point cloud into a mesh in SketchUp. They have some really cool tooling actually to do that. So it's very intuitive and very fast to do it that way. And then as I've had that, SketchUp model of the point cloud mesh, I mapped that up as DXF basically and brought that into Revit. And it was pretty smooth in Revit actually to actually pan through. And actually, I found out it was, I thought it's going to be slower in Revit, but it wasn't. I think it was probably even faster in Revit in terms of performance frames per second and the smoothing. So yeah. So, and again, these are, if you go in hidden line mode, these meshes are not going to kind of burden your view or, contaminate with many triangles or lines where you can't, have your line drawing readable. So yeah, and it's separated into a few different meshes, but I think this top one is the biggest one. It has like over 100,000 polygons. I could get the numbers for that. Yeah, and then you could actually also hit some dimensions of these if you have like those lines visible for that import symbol essentially. So
it's awesome.
Yeah, the other one that we did is we ran it with the car, or this one too. This one's pretty fun. So for this table, for example, like you wouldn't want to build this parametrically, and maybe this is not a very common problem, but just kind of showcase that there's some workflows that are you kind of have to go through something like this to be able to kind of do certain things within Revit. So yeah, this is just showing like how when you actually do bring this in, if you were to use something like Enscape to render it, it doesn't render faceted like it would in in the Revit preview work. And I think the last one I wanted to show here is the car one, which is I think this one. Yeah, so this one's 80,000 polygons. We did explode everything essentially, and then we brought that into Revit, and it looks clean. Like you can actually have it in drawing even if you wanted to as a thing. So and it won't slow down Revit much. Actually, it's pretty smooth performance in Revit. So
that's awesome. Is that the next table you're purchasing, Ben?
Yeah.
Yeah, was that rendering your house again?
3D printing. How about that?
There you go.
I have the model for it.
That's right.
How long it lasts.
Ben, is there an application for this using the site topography tool in Revit?
Yeah, I didn't go over that. And I don't think we could go
I know
over
we're
that
about
now,
out of time, but
yeah, we're out of time. I mean, you could do it different ways. Obviously, you can actually have exact one-to-one mesh, but then that's not editable. But yeah, we do support topography as well. So if you click that on topography in SketchUp, it brings in as a native topography in Revit with like the points and everything.
Nice.
So
cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Some people are asking Ben how they can get a copy of Helix. So can you talk about kind of the forum and if anybody wants to try it out, run it through the paces, give us some feedback, post your comments?
Yeah, for sure. So if you go to www.evolvelab.io and you go to software and you go to Helix, you get to this landing page here. You can download the beta here, so you can install it right now if you want to and kind of reproduce some of the stuff that I was kind of showing this conversation. Learn will give you to the docs. So we have docs for the application of some of the core concepts. We also have the forums, which is what I was showing earlier. So you can see some of these workflows that are it's a bit more compressed of just one way of working through this with GIFs and kind of steps there. We also have feature requests or bug submittals, which is really let us know, something is not there that you'd like to see there. And then, contact us, which is just kind of like a different way to just get in touch with Bill or myself. But yeah, so yeah, you could get it here and just have this kind of landing page for that. And you could go ahead and get started with it.
Sweet. Thanks, dude. Incredible job, Ben. Good job, team. Shout out to Mark, Chris, Daniel, Ben, everybody that's been contributing to Helix. For those that don't know, we're a cross-section of team members. And so it takes a lot of people to try to bring something this, to the world. So appreciate everyone's time that's contributed to Helix. We're hoping that it's beneficial to you guys. Hopefully you can integrate it into your workflow. A big thanks to Ben for all the Helix posts on the forums and doing this demo and contributing code to Helix, dude. You're crushing it. Thanks so much. It's great.
Sure.
Cool. Any last comments, Jim? Ben?
No, just going to say it's super impressive, and I'm just continually impressed with everything that you guys are showing me. So I love it. I think it's going to be very useful.
Agreed. Sweet.
Awesome.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Happy birthday, Ben. Enjoy.
Happy birthday.
Thanks for doing a demo, celebrating your birth by doing a Helix demo. So appreciate that.
Thank you. It's a good gift for myself, I guess, right?
I love it. Cool. All right. That's
Awesome.
it. Thanks, everybody. Let us
Alrighty.
know if you have any questions, and we'll catch up with you guys soon.